good evening to everybody. Dalton, are we rolling?
We are.
Cool. Big hand for Dalton Johnson, our sound guy today. Thank you so much for coming in out of the cold. I hope it's nice and toasty in here. We are certainly toasty up here. We are the Icebox Radio Theater. Welcome to the John Faith Little Theater for our big show today, Cops and Robbers. First of all, let's talk about our cast. If you've come to our shows before, a lot of familiar faces. We're doing Candy Matson, which of course means, ladies and gentlemen, first off, it's Ayla McIntosh, the lovely, the talented. And the gentleman she beat out for the role of Candy Matson, Mr. James Young, ladies and gentlemen, the lovely, the talented. And speaking of legends of the IBRT, well, if we're doing Nero Wolf, we know who's here. Ladies and gentlemen, Justin Kapla, i.e. Sidney Greenstreet. I am blocking the view. So, coming with, this is like the second show in a row, right?
I think so, yeah.
Okay, well, she's lovely, she's talented, she has a really interesting career ahead of her. Ask her about it sometime. Grace Fleslin, ladies and gentlemen. And alas, Lance Manley is not with us this evening. However, Caleb Silvers is. It's Caleb Silvers. And of course, our sound effects engineer, or possibly sound effects cue master, we haven't decided on the job title yet, Sonara Irwin, Fort Francis, Ontario. I am Jeff Adams, and me and my partner Diane, who is hiding because she's a backstage person, will be handling live sound effects this evening. Just a couple of notes before we start. Two halves tonight. We will be having a short intermission at about halfway through the show. Look forward to that. Jeremy will gladly help you out with various concessions. There's beer, there's wine, there's popcorn, as we can all smell, of course. Do want to mention briefly the applause sign, which I feel I have to mention because this is a little piece of broadcast history. And, well, okay. Back in the day when radio first started, the fact that this country was very different than what it is made radio very important. We were much more remote. There was a lot of people who lived on farms, sometimes 5 miles or more from the nearest neighbor. And back in the 1930s, especially Dust Bowl Depression, radio did a tremendous thing to help people feel more connected. You can go back and find magazines from that time. There's a lot of talk about what they called rural isolation. Radio was marvelous, and one of the things they loved most about radio back then was if you were sitting in your living room somewhere in Minnesota, let's say, you could hear a live broadcast from New York City and know that it was happening just as you were hearing it. And one of the things the networks did, of course, was had an applause sign so that the people in the studio where the show was happening would know, clap now, because those folks at home really appreciated that. Really meant you could just close your eyes and feel like you were there at the Mercury Ballroom in New York City listening to whatever band that was playing before the Martians attacked. So, all to say, please don't feel like you have to applaud when I flash the applause sign, and please don't feel like you can only applaud when I flash the applause sign. But it is there kind of as an indication to you. And it's very relevant, of course, because we are not just a pretend radio theater. We also broadcast. We broadcast live streams on the internet, both on Facebook. Hello, Facebook. Facebook is looking in right now, and on our streaming radio station, and we're going out live. So there are people listening. Last I checked on Facebook, 2 viewers already. There are people listening to you clap and applaud and shriek and gasp and all that good stuff. So I am running out of stuff in my throat to help me talk, so I think I should probably stop talking now. So what happens next is we go live. We go live on the air. Going live in 5, 4, 3, 2. We now preempt our regular programming for a special presentation. Stay tuned for a live broadcast from the Icebox Radio Theater. It's 7 o'clock on the edge of America, and the Icebox Radio Theater is on the air. It's the Icebox Radio Theater, coming to you live from the John Faith Little Theater in International Falls, Minnesota. Tonight, It's an evening of mystery and intrigue with recreations of classic radio series Nero Wolfe and Candy Matson and the world premiere of iFall's very own gumshoe, Larry Snow, Private Eye. It's Cops and Robbers tonight on the Icebox Radio Theater. But first, a word from our sponsor. Coming soon to a Northland TV near you. It's the police drama ripped from life right here in Minnesota. She's a 20-year veteran of the force. He's a 6-point buck with velvet on his antlers out to prove that a deer can be a cop. Together they're Deer Cop.
I work alone, Chief. I don't need a partner.
I know, Nance. You're the best cop on the force. But the mayor's been right up my chute about this new exchange program, so you're gonna work with Deer Cop.
If you think you have what it takes to be a cop, I'll give you that chance, Dear Cop. But nothing is free on these streets. Out here, you earn respect. And corn. You earn corn too, I guess.
One woman, one deer. The only thing they have in common is a thirst for justice.
Dear Cop, the crook, he's getting away.
Wow, look at him run. Just like a, you know.
Dear Cop, there's a ring of thieves raiding aerial flower beds and vegetable gardens. You have to go undercover as, well, a deer. No, it is not racist. No one else will fit in the costume.
She's a crack shot who finished top of her class at the academy. He's an ungulate that's skittish around loud noises. Together they're Deer Cop.
Oh, I'm hit bad, Dear Cop. You gotta get me to the hospital. No, I don't want a soft lick. That's your answer for everything, isn't it?
Deer Cop, coming this fall.
First up on our show, a return to one of our most popular classic radio recreations. The New Adventures of Nero Wolfe ran for 26 episodes on NBC from October of 1950 to April of 1951 and starred the legendary Hollywood character actor Sidney Greenstreet. Greenstreet was best known for playing corpulent villains in movies such as The Maltese Falcon and Casablanca. We've returned to Nero Wolfe again and again here at the IBRT for the simple reason that we have an actor on stage tonight who embodies the very spirit of the character, our own Justin Kapla. So come back with us now to a Manhattan townhouse with orchids in the attic, a gourmet kitchen in back, and the world's greatest detective at his desk. Here is Nero Wolfe and the case of room 304.
Ladies and gentlemen, the ringing of that phone bell means mystery, adventure.
Nero Wolfe's office, Archie Goodwin speaking.
Hello? Is this Mr. Wolfe?
If it's for me, I'm not here.
Hello?
What if it's a case?
If it is, tell them no.
I will not.
Hello? Hello?
Confound it, Archie. Do as I say.
Hello?
Hello? Is this Mr. Wolfe's residence?
Yes.
Is this Mr. Wolfe?
Yes. Yes, Mr. Wolfe speaking.
Oh, I am in very much trouble. Can I see you, please, immediately?
Well, now what kind of trouble, miss?
Give me that phone, Archie.
No.
Hello?
Sorry, I had to turn on the radio. Too loud, you know?
Oh, may I see you right away?
Well, I don't know,
I will pay you $1,000 as a retainer fee.
Yes, I'll take the case. Come right over. The address is 601 West 35th Street.
Oh, I cannot, Mr. Wolfe. I cannot come there.
Oh, well, where do you live?
I'm staying at the Paul Hotel, room 304, and I...
Hello? Hello? Oh, someone's a shot! Hello? Hello?
Ladies and gentlemen, it's that genius who's the bulkiest and bulkiest, the most ponderous and the most brilliant detective in the world. Yes, none other than that chair-born, massive, unpredictable intellect, Nero Wolfe. created by Rex Stout and brought to you in a new series of adventures over the Icebox Radio Network.
We usually refer to this story as the case of room 304. The girl on the phone had a decided foreign accent. I wasn't able to quite decide what nationality, but it sounded like French. Anyway, there was what sounded like a shot and then dead silence for a second or two. Hello? Hello? Hello?
Well, Archie, another woman? Bah,
I heard a shot and then the line clicks off.
trouble. Women are always trouble.
I said I heard a shot on the phone.
Indeed.
I'm going over to her hotel and see what goes on.
No, by all means, Mr. Wolf.
What?
Now that I've been insulted to the tone of being called a radio,
I'm sorry, Mr. Wolf, but we needed the money and this was $1,000.
if you'll excuse me, I have to attend to my orchids,
What about-
Mr. Wolf.
Well, what about the girl? The shot?
Fascinating, isn't it? You'll figure it out.
Yeah, okay. Well, I've got to get over there. Room 304, Paul Hotel. So long, boss.
Good luck, Mr. Wolf. Please do phone me from time to time.
There's room 300, 302, and 304. Huh. What do you know? The door's ajar. Oh, hello.
Who are you?
Archie Goodwin. Now it's your turn.
I'm Jay Breen, pilot for Trans-American Airlines.
Have you seen it? Oh no, what happened?
I don't know. I've just arrived myself.
And you just hang around with a woman laying there. She's been shot.
Oh, is she?
Yeah. Dead. Very dead. What do you know about this?
I don't know anything. Say, who are you?
Yeah, well, we'll get to that, but now answer the question. What do you know?
I got here a few seconds before you did. I knocked on the door, and the door's partially open, so I pushed it wide, and I...
Go on.
Well, there was no answer. I couldn't see anyone, so I came in, and there she was.
You know her?
Why, yes. Why do you think I came here?
Well, that's what I'm trying to find out.
Look, what right do you have asking me all these questions? What's it to you?
You ever hear of Nero Wolf?
Well, of course. Who hasn't?
Well, like I said before, I'm Archie Goodwin, Wolf's assistant. Now, would you rather talk, or should I call the police?
I've told you all I know.
Who is she?
Helen Renee.
French?
I don't know. European, anyway.
Why'd you come here tonight?
Well, I have a dinner date with her.
You mean you had a dinner date?
Oh, yeah.
Well, let's turn her over.
What? Why?
Remember what I said about being Nero Wolf's assistant? I'm a detective, pal.
Right.
There we go. Yeah, all right. Oh, look at that. There's an automatic in her hand.
Yeah, I never saw it before. Hey, I wouldn't use the phone. Fingerprints.
Nah, it's okay. I'll use this handkerchief.
Well, who are you calling?
My boss.
Nero Wolf speaking.
It's Archie, boss.
Archie. Well, I thought you were Nero Wolf. You sound very much like him.
Please, boss, be serious.
Oh, but I am.
I'm here at the girl's apartment, the one who called me. Yeah, she's dead.
Beautiful?
She was very beautiful.
She would be. How did it happen?
Shot. Neat round hole in her right temple. Looks like she shot herself. When I turned her over, she had a .38 automatic in her right hand and a wedding ring on her finger.
Are you alone?
No, I'm here with a fella named Jay Breen, a pilot. He was here when I arrived.
No one heard the shot?
Apparently not. No one showed up to investigate.
Very interesting. Well, what do you do now, Mr. Wolf?
Should I call Inspector Kramer?
No. And say nothing to anyone. Get over here at once and bring Mr. Breen, the pilot, with you.
So that's all you know about it, Mr. Breen.
That's right, Mr. Wolf. Just like I told Mr. Goodwin here.
Yeah, the whole thing sounds like... Well, hey, I just thought of something.
Pray tell, Archie.
Well, it can't be suicide.
Oh, and why not?
Well, how can a dead woman hang up a phone?
Well, you finally arrived at that, Archie. Amazing. Of course she couldn't. She was murdered.
Murdered?
Yes, Mr. Breen.
But I thought she committed suicide.
Please, Mr. Breen, it would be better for all concerned if you don't think. Where are you staying?
321 West 19th Street, apartment number 5.
And your job?
I'm on 10 days vacation. I just started yesterday.
One thing, Mr. Breen, I suggest you don't leave town. Furthermore, talk is not advisable. I strongly recommend that you adopt precautions.
Yes, sir.
Show Mr. Breen to the door, Archie.
Yes, sir. Come on, flyboy.
Good night, Mr. Wolf.
Good night.
I didn't want to tell you in front of Bean, but I found this when I sent him for a sheet to cover the body.
$1,000 check made out to Mr. Nero Wolf.
Well, boss,
I think it's time we phone Inspector Kramer.
shall I?
Who else, Archie? Who else?
Oh, my apologies. I forgot how heavy that phone really is.
Archie.
Yes, sir. You want me to do the talking to the inspector?
I'll do the talking.
Would you like me to hold the phone for you?
No, you can get me some beer.
Inspector Kramer.
One moment. Here you are.
This is Nero Wolf, Inspector. I think you had better head over to the Paul Hotel.
Yeah.
I believe you'll find a dead woman there.
A dead woman? What is this, a gag?
I'm afraid not, Inspector.
Well, how did you know about it? Have you been over there?
Mental telepathy, Inspector.
Mental... Wolf, I'm too busy today to listen to this nonsense telepathy. Don't give me that kind of stuff. If I find a body, I'll lock both you and Goodwin up.
You really must watch your blood pressure, Inspector.
Never mind about my blood pressure.
One thing, Inspector.
Yeah?
Would you hold off the press for the present?
Why? What are you holding back, Wolf?
Will you stop your idiotic jabbering and just do what I asked?
Okay. I assume you being such a great detective, you know the girl's room number.
Well, naturally, Inspector. It's room 304, so hurry.
Pa.
Oh, dear Inspector Kramer. He's so fond of me. Archie,
Yes, sir.
I suggest you call the bank in the morning and find the person who's handling Miss Renee's account. Then have them bring all her canceled checks over here.
Yeah, what if they say no dice?
Well, then Kramer will get an order to do so. Seems particularly cooperative today.
Coming!
Well, where's Wolf?
Yeah, he's taking a brisk stroll around the park.
You're kidding.
Of course I'm kidding. He's in his big chair.
Good evening, Inspector. I expected you before this. What kept you so long?
If I told you I had a flat tire, would you believe me? Now, start giving, Wolf. What do you know about this dead girl?
Inspector Kramer, do sit down, relax. Nervous tension is such a deadly thing.
Now listen here, Wolf.
Would you like some beer? It's most soothing, you know.
Come on. What's the dope on this case?
Fill the inspector in on the details, Archie.
I was here talking to the girl over the phone. I heard a shot over the phone lines, so I headed over to her hotel and found her just as you did, dead on the floor. The phone was placed back on the hook.
Come on, Wolf. There's more to this than that. Let's have it.
Really, Inspector?
Who was she?
You don't know?
I mean, what do you know about her? No, get this straight, Wolf. I do... Please, Wolf. What's it all about? A girl's been killed. Her name is Helen Renee. What happened to her?
Do you have a ballistics report made on that gun?
Not yet, but I will.
How'd you make out your report?
Suicide, naturally.
But Archie was talking to the girl on the phone at the time she was shot.
So she chooses to kill herself talking to your assistant. I completely
Why,
understand.
you big flat
Inspector, precisely how can a dead girl hang up a phone?
Well, she...
You see, Inspector, quite impossible. And now I suggest you make out your report. Murder.
Murder? Wolf, tell me, why is it you're always mixed up in these screwy cases?
That, Inspector, would be as difficult to answer as it would be to convince Archie of the danger of the female of the species.
Oh, what's the use? No one ever answers my questions. I give up.
Now, Inspector, I do hope you'll bring the girls' canceled checks tomorrow if they don't turn them over to us.
For what?
The inspector's just going, Archie. Please see him to the door.
I'm not helpless.
Good night, Inspector.
Good night.
Please, boss, can we have just a little fresh air in here?
You were out all morning. Wasn't that enough?
I had to invest in an oxygen tank.
Well, then do so. The face mask you'd have to wear would make it a good deal quieter around here. Now, did you contact the bank regarding the girl's account?
I did. I finally talked to the head of the accounting department. He told me about her personal agent here, a Mr. Renfrew. He was handling all of her financial affairs, so I went to see him.
And what did Renfrew have to say?
Very little, but he seemed very upset when he learned of her death. I didn't tell him how he died, though. He said Helen Renee here was buying technical equipment for her government in Europe.
Technical equipment? What kind?
Laboratory stuff.
Did she make any definite purchases?
From the aero company here in town. Mr. Paul Morio is the head man there. Mr. Renfrew, her agent, gave us quite an argument about coming over here today. He said it was very irregular to show bank statements. But he finally gave in. I didn't need the inspector's help.
What time do we have the honor?
Yeah, he said he'd be here about noon.
Noon? You know I'll be busy at that time.
I didn't think you would.
Archie, you never do.
Your lunch will keep just this once, Mr. Wolf.
Not this once, nor any other time, Archie. I have lunch precisely at noon, not 1 minute before or after, understand?
Yeah?
I surmise you have the address of the Aero Lab Supply Company?
Yes, sir. You want me to go have a talk with Mr. Morio, who runs the place?
Sometimes, Archie, your conclusions are fantastic.
I'm leaving.
And one more thing.
Yes?
After your return from your visit with Mr. Morio, would you be so kind as to entertain Mr. Renfrew until after my lunch? And don't just stand there with the door open.
Oh, sorry, boss. Do forgive me. I'll just go out through the coal chutes. Air Supply Company. All right.
Come in.
Hello? Mr. Morio in?
Hi, Morio.
And my name's Goodwin. Archie Goodwin.
What can I do for you, Goodwin?
I'm Mr. Nero Wolf's assistant. You've, heard of Nero Wolf?
I don't get around too much. Why don't you tell me about him?
How should I answer that?
Any way you like.
Nero Wolf's a detective. You ever hear of a Miss Helen Renee?
Stop shadowboxing, Goodwin. What's on your mind?
I understand you sold Miss Renee some laboratory equipment.
Oh, is it a jail term to do that?
No, not for that.
Now listen, Goodwin. I run a nice, respectable business here, so tell me what you want. Spill it.
When did you last see Miss Renee?
2 days ago?
Talked to her since?
Once, on the phone.
What time was that?
Yesterday morning.
You call her from your office here?
No, from my hotel room. Look, let's quit playing cat and mouse. Why all the questions?
Miss Renee is dead.
Dead? Well, who did it? Now, wait a minute. You don't think I had anything to do with it?
Well, what makes you think anyone did it?
Well, that's about the only reason cops would get involved.
You know, Mario, I'm beginning to wonder just how long you've been in lab supply business. You know what a retort is? And don't tell me it's a snappy comeback.
Now, look, Goodwin, what's eating you?
Well, I came here to find out something about Helen Renee. Just what sort of equipment were you selling her?
It was heavy stuff. Heavy chemical works.
Where is it?
We don't do samples, just pictures. We ship it direct.
Oh, so the purchaser never sees what he's buying?
That's right.
Can I see what she purchased?
I'm afraid not. Besides, what difference would it make?
Did Miss Renee see what she bought?
No, I already explained that. Now I'm busy, Goodwin, so if you don't mind.
Okay, I'll run along. Good afternoon, Mr. Morio. I'm sure we'll meet again soon.
Nero Wolf speaking.
Archie, boss.
Yes, Archie?
I just left the Aero Lab Supply Company, and as far as I'm concerned, there's something rotten in Denmark.
Indeed.
Yeah, this guy Morio, who runs the company, doesn't sound like a legitimate lab supply man. I think he's running some kind of a racket.
Well, what makes you believe that, Archie?
Well, he's just not the type to be in a legit business. Things just don't jive. And Miss Renee didn't even see what she bought.
Believe then that this Morio would have reason for wanting her out of the way.
Yeah. And this guy he made me see red. I wanted to take a poke at him.
Archie, you're an idiotic hothead.
He told me she bought heavy lab stuff, but refused to let me see what.
Forget it now. Get over here as soon as you can.
Now? Well, what gives?
Have you forgotten? You have an appointment with a Mr. Renfro from the bank at noon. Goodbye.
Coming.
Hello, Mr. Goodwin.
Mr. Goodwin? Oh. Well, who's this? Come in.
Yes, come in, my dear.
Thank you.
I brought my secretary along. I hope you don't mind.
Mind? Well, how could anyone mind?
Mr. Goodwin, this is Ms. Bennett.
Hello, Miss Bennett. First name?
Jean, do you always use this very, very direct approach, Mr. Goodwin?
Only at noontime. And my name's Archie. Well, this is a happy surprise. Please sit down, Jean. Allow me.
Thank you.
Well...
Wasn't it Mr. Renfro you wanted to see?
Oh, yes. Mr. Wolf will be down shortly, Mr. Renfro. Please be seated.
Thank you.
Is something wrong, Mr. Goodwin?
Not a thing, Miss Bennett. Not from where I stand.
Don't believe a word he says, miss. His judgment concerning women is not to be trusted.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Wolf. You're so kind. Mr. Wolf, Miss Bennett.
Mr. Wolf?
How do you do? Well, Mr. Renfro, I presume.
Yes.
Now we can get down to the business at hand.
Yes, by all means. I don't understand why we couldn't have discussed this on the phone, Mr. Wolf. The whole thing is highly irregular. Of course, I know you're trying to do your duty, but...
I prefer not to discuss a dead girl's business affairs on the phone, Mr. Renfro. You should appreciate that.
Yes, I see. Now, what is it you wish to know?
How long have you known Helen Renee?
About a month.
When's the last time you talked to her?
Yesterday.
What time?
Why, about 2:30. I called her from my room. She was here on government business.
You brought the canceled checks?
Well... Yes, here you are, Mr. Wolf.
Quite sizable amounts, Mr. Renfro. Very interesting indeed.
Yes. Well, you see, Miss Renee made several large purchases. They were all quite legitimate.
Would you mind if I kept these checks overnight?
Oh, well,
Thank you, Mr. Renfro. By the way, was Miss Renee right or left-handed?
Why, right-handed, I believe. Why do you ask?
Just inquisitive. Now, if you'll excuse me, Miss Bennett, Mr. Renfro, I have a very urgent appointment.
Well, if I can be of any more service, don't hesitate to call on me, Mr. Wolf.
Thank you, sir.
Oh, dear. Poor Miss Renee. I hope the person who did this dreadful thing is dealt with properly.
Indeed.
Well, I must run along now.
Yes, this way. Must you go too, Miss Bennett?
Good day, Mr. Wolf.
And I must go. Good day, Archie.
See you soon. Well, boss, what did you think? Isn't she a beauty?
Well, I'm sure I'm not a fair judge, Archie. Do you happen to know where the Morio warehouse is?
Oh, why, yes. It's at the other end of the town near the river and... no, not again.
9 o'clock tonight.
Okay. I suppose you want me to take a gander at what's in the warehouse. Break in like a burglar.
Archie, if your mind were free of women, I do believe you could reach phenomenal heights in this your chosen profession.
Yeah. Yeah, no, there's nothing here but a bunch of old tubes and glassware. High-end equipment my foot. I hope Wolf knows what he's doing, because I sure don't.
All right. Stand right where you are and reach.
What the?
Flick the lights on, Joe. That's better. Now sing. What are you doing here?
I beg your pardon, I'm a little deaf. I couldn't hear you.
I said, what are you doing here?
Oh, yeah. Helen. I was supposed to meet her here.
Makes sense, will ya?
You think I can?
What's the matter, Mac? Visitors?
Oh, this little bird refuses to talk.
Well, just knock it out of him.
You two talk it over. Don't bother to tell me how it comes out.
Wait a minute, you. You ain't leaving.
All right. You win. This night is just full of surprises.
Ain't it just? Let's just see what you're toting.
Hey, now, hey, who do you think you're shoving around?
Just full of questions, ain't you?
You know, someday you're gonna get yourself into serious trouble. It's illegal to shove people around.
I guess you better understand something.
Dog! Hey, are you kidding?
Get the point? Now get out! Now talk!
Why, you,
You still want to play, huh?
Yeah, no!
Wow, he's out like a light, Mac. What are you gonna do with him?
Nothing. He won't be doing any more snooping around here if he knows what's good for him.
You know something, Mac? You got an awful disposition. I'm actually scared of you sometimes, you that mean?
Yeah. Dump him outside.
Hey, boss, it's me, Archie. Remember?
Archie, these interruptions are detestable. Can't you see I'm... Is that you, Archie?
Oh, well, what's left of me? I had an accident.
Well, from your appearance, I'd say you had several. All right, Mr. Goodwin, as long as you insist on interrupting my meditation, start at the beginning.
I arrived at the warehouse. I went inside. I saw a lot of old packing cases and old glassware, worn out junk. And then two men jumped me. I came to laying in the alley. I staggered to a cab and made it home. End of story.
Archie, your repertoire of words is most astonishing. And your description of Morio's warehouse is, without a doubt, most enlightening.
I thought you'd like it.
And now, Archie, I suggest you get Fritz to give you a piece of beefsteak for that eye of yours.
And after that?
Well, I've arranged for a gathering at 5 o'clock tomorrow afternoon.
Then I shall repair to my bed to suffer in silence.
You should be more careful on these nefarious expeditions. You might get hurt sometime.
Yes, I've been a careless fellow, Mr. Wolf. Good night.
Good night, Archie. Pleasant dreams.
Mr. Wolf, I'm glad you called me earlier. I was just about to leave town for a couple of days. Now, what is this conference about?
All in good time, sir. Now, sit, if you please.
I'm glad you could come along, Miss Bennett.
I'll be happy to assist you in any way I can, Mr. Goodwin.
Archie.
Oh, yeah, right. Yeah. Good evening, Mr. Mario. I knew we'd meet again.
No fault of mine, Goodwin.
Now, please come in, Mr. Mario. You don't want to keep the rest of the guests waiting?
What do you want with me?
What do I want? Nothing. Mr. Wolf, this is Mr. Mario.
Sit down, sir. Take the red leather chair.
Yeah, for our special guest.
Oh, yeah?
Now, gentlemen, you're probably wondering why I asked you all here. Naturally, it has to do with the death of Helen Renee. Mr. Morio, I understand you and Miss Renee had some business transactions that involved quite a sum. She purchased laboratory equipment.
Yeah, that's right.
Archie told me that your warehouse contained nothing but second-hand junk. It was a shame, Mr. Morio, that this shipment was delayed by a shipping shortage. Otherwise, you might have gotten away with it.
Is that why you called me over here? Tried to fit me with a fraud rap?
Decidedly no. All that is immaterial to the case in hand. I'm only interested in Helen Renee's murder.
Hey, wait a minute. You don't think I did it?
Didn't you?
No. All right, I admit everything you said about the equipment, but I've got no part in any murder.
I see. Mr. Breen, you're an airline pilot and a war flyer. If you had shot the girl, then...
What? I never.
Please don't interrupt and simply answer the questions put to you, Mr. Breen. Now, if you had shot the girl and wanted to make it look like suicide, in which hand would you have put the gun?
Why, her right hand, I guess?
Indeed. When did you first meet Miss Renee?
We were boarding the plane at Orly Field in Europe.
Mr. Renfro.
Now look here, Mr. Wolf, this has gone too far. I will not be put through any such third degree. If you'll excuse me, I really must.
Hey, now sit down, Renfro.
Well,
Mr. Renfro, I am astonished that anyone would be as amateurish as they were in this case.
I don't understand.
Could it be that you killed Miss Renee and attempted to make it look like suicide because she was about to tell me that her bank account was $15,000 short and that the shortage was due to a series of forgeries?
No. I mean, what reason would I have to kill her?
Well, $15,000 would be motive enough, I'd think.
But you have no proof.
You forget the canceled checks, which clearly show a reasonable facsimile of Miss Renee's signature, except that several of them bear signatures that were clearly written by a right-handed person.
Oh, this is nonsense. It's ridiculous.
And finally, the poor girl was shot through the right temple, Mr. Renfro, while talking on the telephone with the gun in her left hand. Wouldn't it be awkward for her to twist around her face and shoot herself in that way?
I've heard enough of this nonsense.
Yesterday you made a statement, quote, "I hope whomever did this dreadful thing is dealt with properly." Dreadful thing? Only the police, Archie, and I knew that Miss Renee had not died naturally. How did you know that unless you were the murderer?
Now don't make a move, any of you. I was forced to eliminate her.
Oh, dear me, I grow so weary of these melodramatics. Put away the gun.
I've spent 15 years sweating, slaving to live the kind of life I want. Now I have it. And neither the great Nero Wolf nor anybody else is going to take that away from me. I'll kill anyone who tries to follow me out of this house. Now stand back.
Mr. Renfro, don't, please!
Drop it, Renfro.
What? Oh.
Well, Inspector, you certainly arrived at an opportune time, even if you are late.
What do you mean late? I've been standing out there listening to Renfro for 5 minutes.
Boy, that's too close.
Well, good night, Mr. Wolf. Not so fast, Mario.
Quite right, Inspector. I suggest you hold Mr. Morio here for swindling Miss Renee and her government. And, Archie,
Yes, sir?
do you know how to care for a person who's fainted?
Why, sir, certainly do.
Well, then look behind you. Your pretty Miss Bennet has collapsed.
Huh.
I'll get it. Hello?
Is this Miss Jean Bennet?
Why, yes, just a minute. I think it's for you, Archie.
For me?
Mm-hmm.
No one knows I'm here. Hello?
I thought I'd find you here, Archie.
How did you know I was here?
Well, I deduced that by the skill you exhibited in reviving a patient from a deep faint. Archie, on your way home, I want you to stop by the delicatessen and pick up the following things. Black Forest ham, beer, olives, 3 bottles.
It's my boss.
How did he know you were here?
Pure deduction. That's why he's called the world's greatest detective.
Really? That's most impressive.
Want to see something else impressive?
Archie, you really shouldn't. Oh, Archie.
Archie? Yeah, well, guess you didn't hear a word of it. Good night, Archie.
This has been The New Adventures of Nero Wolfe, The Case of Room 304, written by Virgil Reimer based on characters created by Rex Stout. Our cast featured Ayla McIntosh as Helen Renee, Caleb Silvers as Captain Breen, Mr. Renfro, and Mac the Thug. Grace Fuslin was Miss Bennett, Jeffrey Adams was Inspector Kramer and Morio, James Yunt was Archie, and Justin Capla starred as Nero Wolfe. Directed by Jeffrey Adams, live Foley sound effects by Jeffrey Adams and Diane Adams, your sound effects cue master, engineer, Sonara Irwin, ladies and gentlemen. One more time for the crew. Next up, we whisk you away to glamorous San Francisco of the 1950s and the beautiful, brilliant detective Candy Matson. Candy Matson, Yukon 28209, was the brainchild of San Francisco radio personality Monty Masters
They aired for 92 episodes on station KNBC from 1949 to 1951. Masters had originally planned to create a new mystery series based around a male private detective, a role he planned to take himself, until his mother-in-law convinced him to switch the character to female and give the role to his wife, Natalie Parks. Though Candy Matson Yukon 28209 never gained a national following in its day, it has since become a favorite of old-time radio buffs as one of the very few mystery series that stars a female lead. And since we have a leading female in Ayla McIntosh, it seemed only right for the Icebox Radio Theater to recreate San Francisco's most brilliant sleuth. So now jump off that cable car, duck into your favorite spot on Fisherman's Wharf, and get ready for Candy Matson, Yukon 28209, and the case she calls the Black Cat.
Hello, Yukon 28209. Well, yes, this is Candy Matson.
The Icebox Radio Theater presents Candy Matson, Yukon 28209.
Well, that was a pleasant afternoon, Rembrandt dear.
Well, pleasant but unprofitable. As many times as I've been to the horse races, I never seem to have the gumption to quit when I'm ahead.
Like Damon Runyon once said, horse players die broke.
I'm also reminded of that old song, Horses Don't Bet on People. Oh, but the scenery was lovely. I enjoyed it.
Yes, Golden Gate Fields is a beautiful park.
Why are you headed up into the Berkeley Hills, Candy?
Well, I wanted to avoid the traffic on the East Shore Highway this time of afternoon. And two, I just had a thought.
Oh, bully for you. So few people have them anymore. What might the idea be?
I know a cozy little spot to eat over in Lafayette. How would you like to have dinner there instead of town?
Oh, splendid, girl. Sounds delightful. My, this is rather forlorn country up this way.
Yes, the real estate boys haven't caught up with it yet. Wait till they see the results of the recent census. Homes will be sprouting all over these hills like the poppies are now.
Help! Help me, please!
What was that?
It came from back there, Candy. Must be from that house. It's the only one around here.
Come back! Help! Serious!
Yes, it is that house. Let's find out what this is about, Ducky.
Now that's a fine start for a cozy dinner in Lafayette. It could only happen to Candy Matson, San Francisco's well-known private investigator. Whether she's at home in her penthouse on Telegraph Hill or at the races in Albany, it makes no difference. Trouble always seems to pop up its dangerous head, and this was no exception. A quiet afternoon watching the wrong horse finish in the right position, then a drive along top of Berkeley skyline, and out of the dust, a man's cry for help. That cry led to a maze of events that would have done justice to an Alfred Hitchcock movie. Want to hear what developed after the man called for help? Well, here's the gal to do it, Candy Matson.
What was that the man said about a maze of events? Well, he's right, but in such a mild way. Just to pick a word at random, it was murder. Well, that's part of the story that comes later. What comes firster was the fact that I stopped the car, turned around, and drove up in front of this lonely house overlooking all of San Francisco Bay. The front door was open, so Rembrandt and I walked right in. There, by an open window, was a man on his knees, draped over the windowsill from where he had called. His face was ghostly pale, and his lips were turning a very unpleasant blue.
Oh, thank you. Oh, thank you.
Oh, it's a heart attack. Quick, Rembrandt, help me get him on the couch.
Surely.
And then we'll get his collar open and loosen his tie. Oh, there we are.
My wife, gone for doctor.
Good. How long ago?
I don't know, 10 minutes, maybe? I can't wait. Too late. Here, take this envelope. Deliver it.
Take it easy. Don't try to talk. Save all the strength you possibly can.
This, important. Must talk, must...
I've got his tie off, Candy.
Yes. Never mind his collar, though. Won't do him any good. Not now.
Candy, you don't mean he's dead?
I'm afraid so. I can't feel any pulse.
Well, this is a fine kettle of smelt. How do we explain this, Dove?
Well, the only way to explain it. Just tell what happened the way it happened.
Who will believe that we were just driving along a lonely road, heard this chap call out for help, went to his aid, and then had him expire gracefully a minute later? It's too pat, Candy.
Well, the truth is always hard to swallow, Rembrandt.
Well, this is cozy. What do we do now?
We'll leave. Report it to the police and be on our way. There's nothing we can do by hanging around.
We could stay and console the widow when she returns?
No, I hate scenes like that. She'll cry, and then I'll cry, and then I'll be miserable for a week. Come on, Ducky, let's go.
You aren't forgetting the envelope, are you?
No, that was the request of a dying man. I'll follow through with it. Rembrandt, what's wrong?
Oh, it startled me. A black cat just ran across the doorstep in front of us.
Now, don't start anything like that. A cat's a cat, whether it's black, green, or beige. It's only the kind that walk on two legs that make me worry.
Well, start worrying then. Here comes one of the males of the species.
Oh, pardon me.
Oh, certainly. Are you the doctor?
Yes, that's right.
I'm afraid you're just a little bit late, Doctor. The gentleman there is dead.
What? Jerome's dead? Oh, the fool. I've warned him.
I'm not being curious, you understand, but where's the gentleman's wife?
Well, inside, isn't she?
No. Just before he died, he said she'd gone to get you.
She called me. On the phone. I had assumed it was from the house.
Well.
Oh, I just knew something like this would happen. It was that black cat.
Oh, Ducky, come on. By the way, Doctor, what was the gentleman's name?
Moreland. Jerome Moreland. Now wait just a moment, young man. If you don't know him, what were you doing inside?
That's a good question. Answer the good Dr. Candy.
Well, my friend here and I were driving up the road. Obviously, Mr. Moreland made it to the window, opened it, and called to us as we were passing. I turned about, went in, the door was open, and we found him on his knees up against the windowsill. We lifted him onto the couch and tried to make him comfortable, but it was too late. He died in less than 30 seconds.
Come along with me, will you please? First, I want to examine Jerome, but then I'll need you for some information from my reports.
We went back inside the house, and the doctor busied himself with whatever doctors busy themselves with when examining a corpse. Rembrandt and I stood in the hall and watched while we had a smoke. When the medic finished, he fired a volley of questions at us. Where we lived, how long, occupations, etc., and then he excused us. Felt funny being on the opposite end of an inquisition, but the doctor was nice enough about it. It had to be done. We gave up the idea of dinner in Lafayette, drove back across the Bay Bridge, and ate at a place in Chinatown. All the time I had one tiny gnawing thought at the back of my head. What had happened to Moreland's wife? And when one's husband is dying, you don't stop off for a pound of hamburger and call the doctor from the butcher's shop. After dinner, Rembrandt, who had been silent, spoke up.
Dove, I can't place my finger on the exact cause, but I do have a slight touch of the vapors.
Oh, Ducky, I'm sorry.
Well, it was either the sight of that poor man dying on the couch or the tomato chow yuck. In either case, I'd like to get home, attack the aspirin bottle, and retire to me Downey. Would you be a love and drive me to me domicile?
Oh, certainly, dear. I've got a little errand I want to run anyway.
Oh, girl, are you going to entangle yourself in this Berkeley thing?
Well, you know me and my hunches. Something smells about this deal. I don't like it. In the first place, I'm not too sure about that doctor. The more I think about it, the more it strikes me that he gave the late Jerome Moreland a very amateurish going over.
I noticed that too.
And that was a family home, Ducky. It showed great, huge gobs of loving care. If Moreland's wife was that kind of a homemaker, she wouldn't just run out of the house and call the doctor and forget to come back.
I admit, it does sound suspicious. It's that cat, believe me.
Oh, you do have a touch of the vapors. Come, Lamb, I'll take you home. You're becoming delirious. I drove Rembrandt to his place on California Street, then over Kearny to the Hall of Justice. It was just possible that my number one boy, Inspector Ray Mallard of San Francisco Homicide, might still be on the job, homiciding. The only place to park was a red zone, so I took the loyalty oath, parked, and went into the grim gray structure of justice. Mallard's flat feet were on his desk, with the rest of him still attached.
Well, Cupcake, what brings you around to these dank dungeons?
Not love, if that's what you're thinking. Not at this late hour.
Well, if that isn't just a little suspicious foot flat. A girl drops around to say hello, and right off the bat, she gets in a verbal left-right to the chin. You've got to admit, Candy, the thing looks phony. Social calls are usually made a bit earlier in the evening.
Okay, you've got me. I'm here on business.
Oh, you see? If you'd admitted it in the first place, we would have saved 5 lines of dialogue. What's the pitch?
I just met a doctor.
How thrilling. That doesn't happen to just anyone. Everything's okay, I hope?
Oh, I'm as fit as a fiddle. The plot's to do with a gent who died under my very nose, Mallard dear.
That's occupational with you. Now suppose we start from the beginning.
Do you know a man by the name of Jerome Moreland?
Jerome Moreland? Are you kidding? He's merely one of the world's outstanding scientists.
Well, shake hands with the hands that unloosened his tie, then. He up and died this afternoon with Rembrandt and I in attendance.
What? Oh, why, this is terrible, Candy.
Mallard, dear, I've never seen you quite so upset.
It's going to upset the entire country. Dr. Moreland was a very vital cog in the United States' international security.
I'm afraid I don't understand.
Yeah, you will when you read page 1 in tonight's papers. He's the man who played one of the leading roles in developing the A-bomb. He contributed largely to the H-bomb, and, well, from what I've heard, he's working on something currently that would have outvoted both of them.
Now I remember. He made the cover of Time about a month ago, didn't he?
Yeah, that's the guy.
Imagine. And I was there when he died.
How did it happen, Candy?
Well, Rembrandt and I were driving up this road in Berkeley, and we heard this fellow call for help from his house. We went back, and there he was. Heart attack, I'm sure.
What a shame. Moreland meant an awful lot to the security of this country. He was one of those colossal brains of the world. Of course, you'll be called for the inquest, Candy.
Oh, sure. That I know. After all the data the doctor put down, I'm going to be the star.
And who was the doctor?
What?
His name? What was the doctor's name?
Mallard. And you won't believe this. I forgot to ask.
And you make a living as a private eye. Oh, Candy, give it up.
Marry me and I will.
Let's not change the subject.
One of these days, one of my hints is going to seep through that sponge-like head of yours. In the meantime, thanks for the information on Jerome Moreland.
You leaving?
Uh-huh. I've gone as far as I can here. That supersonic barrier of yours, Mallard, is a little hard to crack. As I left the Hall of Justice, the fog was oozing in through the Golden Gate. The lights of the city shot up and in turn were suffocated by the fog bank, giving the town a fluorescent glow. I bought a newspaper, and sure enough, there were the details on the death of Dr. Jerome Moreland. He was everything Mallard said he was, a world-renowned figure, and of course, my name was mentioned prominently as having been there at the time of his death. I went home, hit the sack, and had a fistful of dreams for myself. Mallard was the star in color. The fade-out came with me in Mallard's arms just as the bell rang and saved me from going another round. It was 9 o'clock the following morning. Yukon 28209.
Miss Candy Manson?
That's right.
Sorry to wake you, miss. This is the coroner's office in Berkeley.
Yes, I'd half expected a call from you.
You'll have to appear at the inquest of Dr. Jerome Moreland this afternoon, 1 o'clock, this office.
Okay, I'll be there. Thanks.
Quite all right.
Well, that definitely was the end of Mallard in color. So I got up, showered, pressed, and started applying lipstick. That's when I was reminded of something very important. Rummaging around for a lipstick in my purse, I discovered the letter the good Dr. Moreland had entrusted to me. I'd actually forgotten all about it. I looked at the envelope. It was addressed to one Hans Mittelstadt, Snug Harbor Hotel, Embarcadero, San Francisco. I had an appointment to have my hair done, so Mr. Mittelstadt would have to wait. I dropped down to my girl Veda. I sat, she worked, and several pin curls later I picked up Rembrandt and drove over to the coroner's office in Berkeley. It was the usual routine. Questions, answers, I testified, and then Rembrandt, and then the doctor we had bumped into at the scene of the good doctor's demise. Still no Mrs. Moreland, though. That, to me, was the major issue in the whole deal. There was the only place I could expect more info. That was with Hans Mittelstadt at the Snug Harbor Hotel on the waterfront in San Francisco. So that's where I went. A few blocks and a parking space later, I found myself before a wiry desk clerk who eyed me with a suspicious air when I asked about Herr Mittelstadt.
Who?
Stand to windward and I'll do it again. Mittelstadt. Hans Mittelstadt?
I don't believe we have anyone registered under that name. Of course, I've just returned from vacation.
Well, if you can get your mind off the Whispering Pines, would you take a look in your book?
Yes, of course. Oh, I'm terribly sorry. There doesn't seem to be any Mittelstadt listed.
One moment, Buster. What's that right there?
Oh, I must have overlooked that. That does say Mittelstadt, doesn't it?
Well, it doesn't spell Alan Smithy. Now, come on, what's the room number?
Look, Toots, why don't you beat it? You're just leading with your chin.
Well, it's my chin, and I'll lead with it if I want to.
Are you acquainted with Mittelstadt?
Acquainted with him? Of course. Not only that, I have a very important letter for him.
Oh, why didn't you say that? Room 332. To the left after you get out of the elevator.
The clerk lifted an eyebrow toward the north, indicating where the elevator was. I found it, the elevator, not the eyebrow, and hoisted myself to the third floor. A few steps around a dingy corridor, and I was face to face with room 332. I cooled my heels for about 10 seconds and knocked again. Still no answer. So I tried the door, and it squeaked open. The blinds were down, and I was in almost a dusky darkness. I fumbled around for the light switch, found it on the wall next to the door, and clicked it on. What I saw wasn't pretty. The body of what had been an attractive woman in her early 40s sprawled out on the floor on either side of the bed. It only took one look to tell me that she was dead. A set of finger marks around her neck told me how it had been done, and another look at her neck told me who it was. I found a locket with a name inscribed on the back, Ruth Moreland. What happened next was sure to get me in touch with Mallard, because as I stood there, staring at a dead woman's jewelry, I never heard someone sneak up behind me. And then the lights went out. Oh.
A scientist passing secrets, a dead woman on the floor, and now our candy knocked on the noggin? What's next? Stay tuned to hear the second half of Cops and Robbers from the Icebox Radio Theater. It's intermission time here for you folks at the John Faith Little Theater, so we invite you to stretch your legs and check out the offerings at our concessions. For you loyal listeners online, stay tuned for the intermission show. You're listening to the Icebox Radio Theater, coming to you live from International Falls, Minnesota.
And we're back here at the Icebox Radio Theater, the beautiful John Faith Little Theater in International Falls, Minnesota. Later on tonight, coming right up, a brand new character, Larry Snow, Private Eye, from our Northland series. But first, of course, we're going to find out what happened to Candy Manson, who, as you remember, took a knock on the noggin, and we're not sure what's going to happen next. You're listening to the Icebox Radio Theater, coming to you from International Falls, Minnesota. And before we get to Candy, first, a word from our sponsor.
Hi, I'm Bob Carlson. Are you like me? I used to live in the cities in a pretty tough neighborhood, so I heard this sound just about once a week. Oofta, so loud, so obnoxious. Sure, you gotta tell me when there's a fire or a prowler in the house, but why does everything have to be so ding-dang mean? So that's why I started my own company, Nice and Safe, the security company with a northern Minnesota twist. It's important to be safe, but it's just as important to be nice about it. Would you rather have this?
Proceed to exits. This is not a drill. This is not a drill. Proceed to exits.
When you could have this?
Barb. Wake up, Barb. This is your security system calling.
5 more minutes.
Oh, sure. Only you should know that the house is on fire. Oh, I see the house is on fire, Barb. You really should get out of the house.
No.
Oh, I'm afraid so, sweetie. Oh, but wear that nice blue robe. There's some firemen outside setting up, and some of them are pretty cute.
Okay. Okay. Thanks for being so nice about it.
Not a problem. At Nice and Safe, you get to choose your own alarm from our quality assortment of voices, including Grandma.
There's a man in a ski mask outside, sweetie. Run along to the panic room now.
For the single guy, the damsel in distress.
Please save me, but first you must save yourself.
And for the single gal, the team captain.
Save yourself. I will beat back the flames with my shirt.
There's even musical options. For a fire emergency, and of course,
Hey, Joe, where you going with that gun in your hand?
for a break-in or mugging, life can be dangerous, but that doesn't mean it can't be nice. Sign up for Nice and Safe today and have a more pleasant disaster tomorrow.
We now return to Candy Matson, Yukon 28209, in a case called The Black Cat. Back on San Francisco's Embarcadero, Candy had just discovered the body of Ruth Marland, the wife of the famous and also dead scientist Jerome Marland, stretched out on the hotel room floor. But just as she was getting to the bottom of things, Candy felt the kiss of a sap on the back of her head and the lights went out. So now, through the magic of radio, let's jump right inside Candy's concussed noggin as she struggles to reach consciousness.
I floated through space for an eon or two. And then vaguely, something came into audible focus. A voice. A familiar voice. Yes, it was Mallard. At first it sounded as though he were coming from a deep well. So that's where I was. A well. Well. And then his voice changed.
Come on. Candy, snap out of it. You've been out long enough. Come on, Cupcake. Get with it. I'm tired of having you hover over you like a nurse.
Little by little, his voice came into normal shape.
Candy, be reasonable. Untwirl your eyes. Talk to me.
The lights came back on. Mallard stopped spinning around and I saw where I was. A cot in an emergency hospital.
Oh, that's the girl.
Hi, Mallard. What happened?
Supposing you tell me.
Well, I would if I could, but I can't. Oh, I know I got smacked, though.
Well, that's for sure. You could use that knob on your head for a bookend.
How did I get here?
It seems whoever tapped you on the noggin didn't want it to take permanently. They gave you the treatment lightly, just enough to put you out in a blackout. And then they went through your purse like a tornado. The hotel clerk found you and gave us a ring. You've been in the hospital ever since. Did you have anything to do with Mrs. Moreland's ugly finish, Candy?
Oh, you know better than that, Mallard.
Answer me this, then. Could that hotel clerk have given you the wallop?
Might have. I don't think so.
I was just wondering. His size shifted like the 49ers backfield. Okay, so someone goes through your purse. Or Candy. Look at me as best you can. That's a girl. Now, okay. Do you have information somebody could be after? It's not in your purse.
Mallard, have you been going through my purse, too?
Don't get excited, dear. It was only in the line of duty.
Well, don't you realize that a woman's purse is private domain?
Not when the owner of said purse is found unconscious on a hotel floor room next to a dead body. Now, answer my question. Do you have any information someone could be after?
I already did. I'll repeat the answer.
Like I said before, it's not in your purse. Where is it?
I have it on me.
Oh.
Much safer than a purse.
Yeah. What's it about, Candy?
Honestly, Mallard, dear, I can't tell. I really don't know.
What's the information?
Don't know.
Who killed Ruth Moreland?
I don't know.
Who's Hans Mittelstadt?
Well, I don't know that either.
Really? And you just happened to be visiting him at his hotel room? What would Grandma say?
Now, leave Granny out of this. And I honestly don't know a middle stat from a high stat or a low stat. This was just the address on the envelope.
Yeah, the envelope that's not in your purse, but on your person.
Exactly.
All right, Candy, I'll give, but only because you took a smack on the head in the line of duty. Hans Mittelstadt was Moreland's partner. He contacted us last night. He read about Moreland's death in the papers and wanted to make sure their research was safe.
Well, it sounds reasonable.
Yeah, but here's the rub. Hans Mittelstadt has been in Boston for the past 2 weeks. He and Moreland hadn't spoken in all that time.
So why did the good doctor address the note to the hotel?
Didn't you say he'd been working day and night? Yeah, Moreland probably didn't know Mittelstadt was out of town.
Well, which would explain why his wife went looking for him at the Snug Harbor Motel. As far as Moreland's knew, Mittelstadt was still there.
Yeah. But this leaves us exactly nowhere with finding the guy who murdered Mrs. Moreland and the guy who sapped you.
Not exactly nowhere.
Oh?
Yes, my dear Footflat. We know Moreland's research was top secret, and we know the people after it won't hesitate to kill. If that doesn't add up to spy, I'll eat my hat.
Yeah, well, before you make a meal of anything, you need to sleep. Candy, come on.
I wobbled to my feet, and Mallard took me from the hospital back down to the waterfront to my car. And then he patted me on the hand and sent me home. Now I was more than just curious, I was just a teensy bit mad. If somebody tagged my head with a sap, I wanted to know why. So throwing etiquette out the window, I retrieved the letter from my hidden valley and opened the envelope. Addressed to Hans Mittelstadt, it read, "Too many people after Formula 12K have decided on this method. In case my heart goes bad, you will receive this. Look for the collar on Jake. Keep up the good work, Jerry." Look for a collar on Jake? Jake who? What sort of a collar? Barrymore, Prince of Wales, Hoover? In spite of the Gene Krupa drum solo going on in my head, I wanted to know more, and I figured the only chance of getting the same was to revisit the late Dr. Jerome Moreland's house in Berkeley. I eased back over the Bay Bridge, held out my hand with 2 bids at the toll gate, held my breath as I passed down the Clam Flats and whipped up into the hills. And there it was, the house where Rembrandt and I had heard the late scientist calling for help. I probed around the outside, expecting nothing, and found just that. Nothing. I tried the back and came to a terraced patio. Came up short. There, under a tree, with a small boy, sitting with a black cat in his lap. The same cat, I imagined, that had frightened Rembrandt. Well, hello there, Sonny.
Hello.
What's your name?
Tommy, what's yours?
Candy.
That's a pretty name.
Yes, it is. Very pretty. I hope I didn't startle you.
Well, yes, you did, frankly.
My apologies. I was looking for my son. He must have climbed over the fence. I didn't expect to find him here now that Dr. and Mrs. Moreland have passed away. Boy, where have you been?
Right here, playing with the cat.
Yes, of course. Here, let me have the cat. Yes, that's a good kitty. You come right home now. Mommy says the dinner is almost ready. Again, I'm sorry, miss. I hope I didn't frighten you. Come right home now.
That's a pretty cat, Tommy. How long have you had him?
Oh, he's not mine. He lives here with Mr. Moreland.
Oh, I see. Well, don't you think you better go along with your daddy?
That's not my dad.
What? Well, who is he, Tommy?
I don't know. I've never seen him before.
Well, what do you know about that? Listen to me, Tommy. What's the cat's name?
Jake.
Oh, of course. Thanks, Tommy. I'll see you later. You've got 1 gross of popsicles coming. On me. Sometimes I'm a dope. I should have sniffed something when the guy didn't question my presence in Moreland's yard. Now he had a head start on me. He disappeared around the corner of the house, and I ran over there. Nothing but fence. Only one way out, and that was over. I wasn't too familiar with fence climbing tactics, but I could learn, and did in a hurry. I shimmied over to the other side, just in time to catch a glimpse of my man with the cat clutched firmly under his arm running down the back lot. little stream running through the property, dividing the homes on one side of the block from those on the far side. I saw the plan he had in mind. He was going to cut across a small wooden footbridge, duck up through one of the yards on the other side to the front where he probably had a car waiting. I saw I'd never be able to head him off on foot, so I ran back the way I came in, found my car, and whipped around to the other street. Empty. It was a one-way street, so I followed, taking what I thought must be the same course as my quarry. I must have gone about 15 blocks when all of a sudden I was confronted by one, a crowd, and two, a couple of very menacing-looking cars embracing each other, head-on. What's the commotion, officer?
Oh, take a look, lady. Hope you have a strong stomach.
Ooh, quite a tangle. Anyone hurt?
Yeah, lady in the sedan's pretty badly banged up. The guy in the coupe's dead.
The guy in the... That's him!
What? Do you know him?
No. Say, was there any sign of a cat? A little black cat with white paws?
Have you been drinking, lady?
No, officer, that man had a cat with him.
Oh, I haven't seen any cats, and I was only a block away when I heard the crash.
Well, then Jake's bound to be in the vicinity. Excuse me, officer, I've got to go see a cat about a man. I got out of the car, left the officer with his mouth open and his arches flat. Now, if I was a cat, where would I go? Someplace away from the confusion of people and wrecked automobiles. That's where I looked, and sure enough, I found Jake under a bush in 5 minutes. Picked him up, got back in the car, and drove over the hill to the Hall of Justice in San Francisco. I didn't have to worry about my friend in the coupe. I knew where we could find him, on a slab in the Berkeley morgue. I found Mallard sitting at his desk going over some papers. I walked in and plopped Jake, the cat, down in front of him.
What the? Get that thing out of here, Candy.
What's the matter, Mallard, dear? Is the great big detective scared of cats?
Ooh, it doesn't look dignified. Go find him a sandbox or something.
I have a hunch Jake is a very valuable feline. He belonged to the late Dr. Jerome Moreland.
What are you up to, Candy?
You see that collar around Jake's neck? It has a little container on it. Pry it open, Mallard. I think I'll find something.
Huh. Well, it looks pretty solid from here. I don't... Well, you know, wait a minute. Yeah, all right. There we are.
Come here, Jake. On the floor. That's it. Empty the tube, Mallard.
Well, what do you know about that? Microfilm.
And 5 will get you 10 that they contain the formula for Dr. Moreland's latest development.
Okay, Cupcake. Start unraveling the mystery.
Well, this is going to sound incredible, but it's true, so help me. As you know, just before Dr. Moreland died on the couch, he gave me an envelope asking me to deliver it to Hans Mittelstadt's Snug Harbor Hotel on the Embarcadero.
Yeah, his partner has been out in Boston for a couple of weeks.
The same. Only somebody must have been watching that Snug Harbor room and followed me in, whacked me on the beanie, and went through my purse.
I'd like to have a talk with that guy.
That's too late, Mallard. He's busy atoning for his sins. He was killed this afternoon in an auto crash in Berkeley.
Well, that sends me a spot of work. I don't like guys who go around slugging my favorite private eye.
Well, when I got home, after having my head examined by a sap, I decided to look at the message inside the envelope. I thought that if it was worth my skull getting cracked, I was entitled to sneak a look. It said Mittelstadt was to look for the collar on Jake. That left me nowhere until I got to thinking about what Rembrandt had said earlier. It was the cat. I had kidded Rembrandt about that. I went back to the Morelands and found a neighbor boy playing with a cat I remembered from our first visit. The boy told me the cat's name was Jake. The cat carried vital information in that thing on his collar. Just how vital remains to be seen when you have your boys enlarge that microfilm.
Well, you were right. It is incredible. Candy, how about Mrs. Moreland? How did she figure into the deal?
Well, the way I get it, Moreland and Mittelstadt had worked together. Just recently, Moreland had finished his formula. He'd been working night and day. As a matter of fact, that's what brought on his fatal heart attack. In his type of work, he trusted no one except Hans Mittelstadt. He probably told Ruth to go get Mittelstadt after she phoned the doctor.
Yeah, they probably figured he should come look after the research.
That follows. Unfortunately, she didn't know Mittelstadt was out of town and his room was being watched. Our mystery man who sapped me probably cornered her, demanded to know what she'd knew, but she stood up to him.
And it cost her her life.
Right.
This business of the cat, though. You see the mystery man made off with it?
Sure did, Foot Flat.
If he didn't have access to the letter hidden in your private storage...
Careful, Mallard.
Well, then, how do you know about Jake here?
Well, these spies may be ruthless and violent, but they aren't dumb. Mystery Man undoubtedly knew I was involved in the case from the newspapers and from my appearance at the Snug Harbor. When he found me in Moreland's backyard trying to get to the cat, he must have reasoned that the cat was in on the caper somehow and made off with it.
Well, Candy, I got to admit you used your head on this one.
Yeah, and I've still got the lump to prove it. Come on, Mallard, knock off for a little while. You can buy me a Gibson.
A Gibson? Yeah, sure, you've got one coming.
And while we're at it, one big bowl of milk for Jake, with a tuna fish chaser.
Listen again next time this week at the same time. For excitement and adventure, just dial
Candy Matson, Yukon 28209.
This has been Candy Matson, The Case of the Black Cat, written by Monty Masters. Our cast features Jeffrey Adams as Moreland, Caleb Silvers as the doctor and the desk clerk, Grace Flesland as Tommy, James Yunt was Mallard, Justin Kepler was Rembrandt, and starring Ayla McIntosh as Candy Matson. One more time for Ayla, our star. Other voices by the talented cast, direction by Jeffrey Adams, live Foley sound effects by Jeffrey Adams and Diane Adams. Your sound effects cue master engineer was Sonara Irwin.
This past year, the Icebox Radio celebrated its 20th anniversary. Part of that celebration was a pair of surveys where we asked both our listening audience and our actors and artists what types of plays they most enjoyed. In both surveys, mystery won out as the most popular genre. In response to that, artistic director Jeffrey Adams decided to create a brand new detective character to go along with existing IBRT mystery series Rum Runner Sue and the Scoop Sisters. The new series envisioned as a modern noir with a tough but lovable gumshoe from right here in northern Minnesota, reluctantly investigating the icebox of the nation's most perplexing crimes. So now, please allow us to introduce Larry Snow, Private Eye. There's a question mark there on the end. With his first ever case, The Baby in the River.
It all started like this. I was standing in the river, up to my waist in freezing cold snowmelt. A man I just met that very day stood on the bank above me, aiming a gun at my head.
All right, Snow, just keep backing up. You'll hit the drop-off pretty quick.
And, oh yeah, I had a baby in my arms. You know, now that I hear myself, I realize this really isn't the beginning of the story. I should start at the beginning, I suppose, but I guess I was just trying to avoid the trip.
Icebox Radio Theater presents The Adventures of Larry Snow, Private Eye. Tonight's episode, The Baby in the River.
The beginning. Well, let's just begin when I moved to town. That was 15 years ago. Big move to a small town, maybe 90 minutes from anywhere. Icebox, Minnesota has maybe 5,000 souls, all clustered together up against the Canadian border. Everybody knows everybody, and everybody knows each other's business. I came here because a maiden aunt left me a house in her will. I thought real estate sounded swell. The roof leaked, the furnace was working when Grant won Gettysburg, but it's become sort of spotty ever since. And most of the windows were plywood decorated with spray paint. Swell. But I fixed up the place pretty good, converted the basement into an apartment, rented out for the income, and indirectly, that's how all my trouble started.
I will not have sex with you.
That's Greta, the 20-something who's been renting my basement for 5 years. And for the record, I never asked her to have sex with me.
I know some men think you can trade tail for rent, but I will never, ever do that. Ever.
See, now I feel like you're talking to yourself instead of me.
What's that supposed to mean?
You got first, last, and a deposit?
Okay, I was gonna ask about that.
Swell. But I rented to her, of course. I like her there because it's nice hearing some movement in the place. She's the only other person in the house. Oh, sorry, Moose. That's Moose, the third tenant. Only he doesn't move around much because that would interfere with his ongoing attempt to avoid catching mice. It's true and you know it. Anyway, Greta. Good tenant, paid her rent on time, mostly. Kept the noise down, mostly. Occasionally we'd have a beer on the back porch together and contemplate the alley and the 3 empty houses beyond it. It was nice when one of us needed company, which wasn't often. Things didn't get more complicated than that until the day it all kicked off.
Larry, open up!
There are phones, you know, you don't need to pound on the door.
I like the personal touch. Are you busy?
Yes?
That's a lie. You're never busy. I need your help.
I'll get to the shower, I promise. But I keep telling you, you can't take the shower screen out like that, not with hair down to your knees like yours. Why do you take the screen out anyway?
I don't like my feet to get wet when I shower.
You don't, that doesn't even make sense.
Shut up a second. It's not about the shower. Carl's dead.
Well, I'm very sorry to hear it. Who's Carl?
My ex.
His name's Carl? I only heard you call him Mr. Worthless.
Carl's dead, and they're gonna blame me.
Wait a minute. Carl's dead.
That's what I've been saying.
But he died violently, foul play, suspected?
Yes.
Why would they blame you?
We got into a fight.
Okay.
I might have said I was gonna blow his brains out.
Okay.
Actually, I might have screamed that outside in front of his house where all the neighbors could hear.
Okay.
And all of this happened the same night that someone blew his brains out.
Okay. Get a lawyer.
What? Why?
Well, I'll get one too, and then we can play doubles. Why do you think? Have the cops contacted you?
Maybe.
Maybe. What does that mean?
After it happened, I was pretty upset, so I went to a bar to calm down.
Winning strategy never fails.
Shut up. And when I went back to Carl's house, the cops were there, yellow police tape was across the door and everything. One of the cops outside was Bobby Parker. Him and me went to high school together, and he told me what happened. That's what I meant when I said the cops had maybe contacted me.
So did this Bobby character know you and Carl were an item?
Everyone knew.
But they didn't detain you, get a statement or anything?
No.
You're in the clear. If they wanted you, they would have detained you then. Besides, you got the bartender or whoever else saw you at the bar as an alibi.
Yeah, but I don't...
No, not the tears.
I'm sorry. I just wanted to know what happened, and I want to know I'm not going to get in trouble.
Fine, but what do you want me to do?
Look into it.
And what on earth makes you think I know how to do that?
You're smart, and you're always reading those mystery books.
Robert Parker and Earl Emerson do not add up to a criminal justice degree.
Well, it's not like I have a lot of choice. I live a million miles from anywhere in a tiny town with no private detectives. This is how it works up here. You need something done, you find someone you think can do it, and then you ask. Like when you hired my cousin Brad to repair the roof that one time.
Brad said he was a certified contractor.
Did you ask to see his certification?
No.
There you are. Incidentally, he also says he's a certified mechanic. Do not let him near your transmission.
So noted. But look, I don't know
Please.
I'm just not sure that...
Please.
I can't, I'm not... One day.
Thank you.
I'll look into it for one day. Then you're going to have to get a lawyer or go into the French underground or something.
I don't speak French.
And I'm not a detective, but here we are, mon petit. So that's how it started. A couple of tears, my gullible stupidity, and bam, I'm asking questions around town. Greta wasn't much help getting me started, but she did give me the name and workplace of Carl's brother Pete. Said the two of them didn't get along like brothers should. Now, I should remind you at this point, I didn't know what I was doing. Yes, I read a lot, and detective stories do tend to be my bedtime brain candy of choice, but I had no idea how to launch a real investigation. But fake it till you make it had worked before, so that's how I found myself sitting across the desk from a huge man in the back office of an auto parts store. The place smelled like grease and ink, and the desk was strewn with various humps of metal and invoices for same. The man in the chair had a comb-over consisting of 4 strands of greasy hair, bent wire-rimmed glasses, fingers permanently stained with what I hoped was motor oil, and a sour look on his face. I forgave him the latter. The guy just had his brother bumped off after all.
I just can't believe he's gone.
You too close?
Oh, not like we should have been. Christmas, Thanksgiving. I just can't believe he's gone.
Who'd want to kill him, you think?
What was your name again?
Larry Snow.
Oh, yeah, we played Bantams together under Coach Bjornson, right?
You got me wrong. I moved here when I was 30. I'm Greta Bellamy's landlord.
Oh, her.
What's that mean?
What do you think it means? She was too young for him and had a hell of a temper.
Has a hell of a temper. She's not the deceased. You think she killed him?
Who else? Girlfriends get angry all the time. Sometimes the dude ends up dead.
You don't seem broken up about it.
Like I said, Carl and I weren't that close. Besides, this is a small town. Cops will figure it out eventually. They'll get him.
You sure?
Of course. How many suspects could there be? I mean, that Seth kid, he looked angry enough to kill.
Who's that?
That Seth kid, you know? The one Carl got in a big fight with?
I don't know anything about that.
You know, the kid came in with an old Camaro last week.
Why would I know anything about that?
Oh, right. I keep forgetting we didn't play Bantams together. That kid Seth has an old Camaro all beat to hell. Got in a fight with Carl over the price of parts. I don't know what he was expecting. Car that old, they're all going to be vintage or custom refabs.
What was Carl doing here?
What are you talking about? He worked here.
I thought you said you weren't close.
We're not.
But you worked together every day?
Oh, sure. He was half owner of this place.
This town. Well, you talked to the cops yet?
Why would I do that?
Well, they tend to be interested in things like homicide.
What's that got to do with me?
What indeed? I left the greasy man's office taking serious stock of my relationship with Greta and how much trouble her situation was actually worth. I got in my car and headed towards home. Almost got as far as my street before I turned around. Why? I couldn't tell you. I'm a masochist, maybe, or had more curiosity than common sense. Whatever it was, it drove me back to the auto parts store where I lied to the girl at the counter. Impersonating a cop's not illegal, is it? And got some information on one Seth Anderson, the young hothead who had made the scene with Carl, the dead half-owner. The girl knew Seth from school, and her eyes positively sparkled at the mention of him. Because this was a small town, she knew he was between jobs and still lived with his grandparents under the water tower on the south side. She also knew he hung out at the VFW on Fridays, but hadn't been going recently because he was trying to save money. She didn't tell me his blood type or his credit score, but only because I didn't ask. I drove to the south side of town and cruised the street the girl had mentioned until I came to a double wide with an old Camaro parked in front. A tarp was spread out on the ground next to it, and in amongst the automotive detritus was a kid, maybe 22 or 3, in t-shirts, shorts, and flip-flops. There was a few spots on him without motor oil, but he was keeping those to a minimum. He looked angry enough to kill, so I kept my distance and rolled down the window. Hey! Hey, you!
What?
Come here, I want to talk to you.
Go to hell.
Fine, but you're doing that wrong.
What?
That socket's too big.
Hey, you know anything about cars? Oh, seriously. This thing's driving me nuts. It just won't fit right.
Okay, let me see it. Okay, so here's your problem. This is a metric socket. That part's off the Camaro, right?
Yeah.
So you'll need imperial measure, half-inch, quarter-inch, that kind of thing.
Oh. I didn't know there was a difference.
Uh-huh. Nice ride.
Yeah, it was my grandpa's. It was cherry back in '68. He said I could have it if I got it running.
Parts are tough, I bet.
Oh, you've got no idea. You know what those jerks down at the parts store wanted? $50 for an alternator.
Must have been upsetting.
Oh, I nearly threw hands on that dude. Only thing that stopped me was ancient. I would have had a heart attack or something. I'm not taking the blame for that.
He died, you know.
Huh?
I said Carl died. You knew his name was Carl, didn't you?
Well, sure. Everyone knows Carl. He's Greta's ex.
This town.
What?
Never mind. You know Carl's brother thinks you killed him.
What? No, I mean, I couldn't.
You own a gun?
Well, not really. Just Grandpa's deer rifle and a couple of .32 pistols.
Uh-huh.
How'd he die?
Shot in the head. A couple of days after you two got into it at the store.
Oh. Well, I'm sorry, but I didn't do nothing.
Of course not, Seth. You just had a fight with him in public, where you threatened him and then he ended up dead. Cops been here yet?
No. Why would they come here?
Well, you're what they call a person of interest.
I don't interest anybody.
That tracks.
Hey, who are you?
Just a friend of a friend. I'm poking around trying to figure out what happened so my friend doesn't get into trouble.
Oh, I get it. You're Greta's landlord.
What? How did you know?
Well, Greta told me. Someone did. I forget.
This town.
Is Greta in trouble?
No,
Am I in trouble?
not yet. But someone killed Carl, and you're a likely suspect.
Why, on account of that fight?
Why else?
Well, that's not fair. He got in a way bigger fight with that Thin Mint lady at the gas station last week.
Sorry, did you say Thin Mint?
Yeah, you know, Thin Mint, that homeless witch who's squatting in one of those old trailers in Riverside Park.
I thought they closed that place.
Yeah, they did, but one of those trailers slid down the embankment during the last flood. Thin Mint cleared out most of the mud and gunk and has been living in there.
A lady got into a fight with Carl.
A big one at the convenience store. Cops had to be called. And before you call her a lady, you should see her. Her and Carl are about the same size.
Huh.
Hey, where are you going?
I think I'll have a chat with a cookie. Keep out of trouble.
Hey, where do I get the right socket?
No, try the auto parts store.
I can't go back there.
Sure you can. The counter girl's sweet on you.
Wait, what?
Well, Greta was getting her money's worth, in that she hadn't actually paid me anything. Here I'd been on the case for a day and a half, and the number of suspects just kept growing. Greta pointed me to the brother Pete, who pointed me to the kid Seth, who pointed me to the most mysterious character yet. A homeless woman, named after everyone's favorite Girl Scout fundraiser. The Riverside Trailer Park occupied a nice bluff overlooking the river. It was a picturesque spot if you didn't turn around and look at the paint-peeled abandoned office, the overgrown locks, and the 2 or 3 double wides that were left to rot. Having no reason to ever come here before, I formed a first impression that I never really wanted to come back. But if I ran into a meth head looking for a fix, I knew just the address. I parked by the office and headed for the river. At the top of the embankment, I gazed down at an old RV trailer half stuck in the mud. It looked completely abandoned except for the telltale sign of an orange extension cord running out of one window and then up the hill. Someone found electricity from somewhere, it seemed, slid down the hill and got within about 20 feet of the door when...
That's far enough.
Out of the trailer screen door stepped the toughest-looking linebacker to ever use a ladies' room. A woman, easily 250 pounds. She was wearing about half her worldly possessions, had a mop of silver-brown hair, and sported a pair of cat's eye glasses, which went out of style when Eisenhower was in office. She held the door open with one hand and with the other hand pointed a gun at me.
What do you want?
Just baking some cookies. You got any mint?
Wise guy. You see this?
Looks like a gun.
Oh, and observant too. Now make like a tree and leave.
It's all evergreens in this park.
Well, then quit needling me and get out.
This conversation is more clever than I thought it would be.
Get.
Or maybe not. You the one they call Thin Mint?
That's not a name, that's a cookie.
Well, you look like one tough cookie to me with that gun and all. You know how to shoot that thing?
You want to find out?
Not particularly. I'm just wondering about this friend I know got shot. A guy named Carl.
Oh, you mean Greta's ex?
This town.
He got shot?
Yeah, right in the head.
He okay?
Well, I'm sure when the mortician's done with him, he'll look fantastic.
He died?
He got shot in the head. What'd you expect to happen?
Oh, I can't believe it. I was just talking to him.
You mean in front of the convenience store when things got violent, the cops had to be called?
Yeah, that's right. Just talking to him.
Did you kill him?
What?
I say, did you kill him?
Kill who?
Carl.
Oh, I didn't kill him. Heck, I just heard about it myself. Poor Carl. Wonder if Greta knows.
Lady, do you have any idea how much trouble you could be in here?
Hey, nobody wanted this trailer. I got squatters' rights.
No, I mean...
And I meant what I said. Get out.
The door slammed, leaving me alone in the mud. I was stuck with the stirring thought that with every person I talked to, I was getting further away from figuring out what was going on. I'd have done better if I'd just gone to the movies for 2 hours, then told Greta she wasn't in any trouble. It was then that I climbed the embankment to my car and discovered I had company.
Hold up there a second.
A man was leaning against the car, a man in a crisp blue uniform with a shiny badge and an automatic on his hip. His patrol car was parked at an angle that blocked me in. That's funny. I was just thinking about talking to the police.
You know this park is closed.
Sorry, I didn't see any signs.
It's been closed for years. This is private property, which means you're trespassing.
It's not posted as private property. In fact, the only signs I saw were advertising camping spots, nightly rates, check in at the office.
That office is closed.
I'll go one better. That office is boarded up.
You trying to be smart, mister?
I've been trying to be smart all day, but I just keep getting dumber.
I should say, cracking wise to an officer of the law when you've been caught breaking it is never a smart idea.
Sage advice. I'll just get in my car and drive off into the sunset while I contemplate it.
You're not going anywhere.
Are you charging me with something, officer?
Fine.
Okay, what's fine?
I'm fine.
Well, you're not my type, but I see the appeal.
No, my name is Officer Rodney Fine, IPD, badge number 62345.
Your name is Rod Fine?
Rodney. You may call me officer.
Is this for real?
You are infringing on my last nerve, buddy.
It's just Officer Fine sounds like a male stripper name. Like Fireman Bulge and Batch Grinder Independent Contractor. I'm just asking if you're legit.
Does this badge look legit? Does this gun?
Oh, they're both very impressive.
You'll like the handcuffs, too, once you're wearing them.
Am I under arrest?
I haven't decided yet. But you're most of the way there.
All right. Let's take the temperature down.
Let's.
You didn't see my car from the road. The trees block the view.
Now you wait a minute.
That means you're either following me or you're keeping an eye on Thin Mint down there. And if this was just a trespassing rap, you'd have cleared her out by now. Probably means your interest has something to do with Carl's murder, right?
Who are you?
Name's Larry Snow.
Oh, Greta's landlord.
This town.
Seems like you've been busy today.
What do you mean?
Well, you've talked to Carl's brother, then the kid he had an argument with, and now this unfortunate homeless woman.
You know an awful lot about my day for someone who hasn't been following me.
You aren't playing detective, are you, Mr. Snow?
No. Are you?
That trespassing charge is still on the table, Snow. Don't kid yourself. I'll run you in.
Right. Only if you do that, you'll spend the rest of the day doing paperwork for a trumped-up misdemeanor when your chief wanted you to look into Carl's murder, right?
This is a small town.
I'd noticed.
Small towns have small town cops. And do you know what small town cops have?
Stripper names?
They have long memories. I remember the face and name of every person I've ever arrested because there aren't that many people to arrest. Understand?
I think so.
And I'll remember you, Larry Snow. I'll remember you're the guy who kept getting in the way.
From where I'm standing, you seem to be in my way, officer.
What's that?
My car. You blocked me in.
In a hurry to go somewhere?
No, but I'm trespassing, remember? At that point, my new friend, the cop, seemed to run out of banter. I decided to keep my mouth shut since I had been skating on thin ice for a while and really did want to get out of there. After a moment's more glowering, Officer Fine removed his backside from my hood and got into his car. He swung around in a U-turn that left a whole 6 inches between his mirror and my person and drove off. I watched him retreat a little too fast and fail to use his turn signal when he turned onto the street. I think I might have just gotten the better of him. Rod Fine. Who knew the local cops were so interesting? Unfortunately, though, I was left with no answers and no place to go. I looked down at the river. Thin Mint's trailer hadn't moved an inch. I turned and looked back toward town. The trailer park sagged a bit under the heavy weight of time, but looked unchanged. Carl was still dead. I still didn't know if Greta was on the hook for it. I wondered if Thin Mint would have a new suspect for me if I took the trip back down into the mud, but that seemed like pedaling in reverse. That got me thinking that maybe I hadn't been very thorough in my investigation, hard italics, so far. I got in my ride, headed out of town, and aimed the hood toward Southtown. I had a few more questions to ask young Seth. It's my own fault for not being smarter on our first meeting. Less banter, I told myself. More focus. Greta was counting on me. Turns out, I needn't have gotten myself so pumped up. When I got back to the house with the Camaro in front, everything was eerily quiet. The tarp was still on the ground, still covered with parts. I walked around it once and saw something that even a neophyte detective like me couldn't miss. A patch of red lay on the tarp near the Camaro's front tire. It was about the size of a deck of cards and was already turning from crimson to muddy brown. I looked at it a long moment. My stomach turned a little bit, but I swallowed that down. Then I saw another blood spot on the pavement about 5 feet away. There was another beyond that that formed a line right up to the front door of the house. The door was ajar. I could see a bloody handprint smeared on the knob. The kid Seth was just inside the door, face down in a very tastefully done living room from 1978. The blood pool had spread out from under him, ruining the orange shag carpet forever. That's a shame. I'm sure they don't make that color anymore. He'd been shot in the back at least twice, staggered bleeding through the door and fell. That was it for Seth. He'd never finish his Camaro project. I stepped back onto the driveway and watched the bloodstained door close slowly. My ears buzzed. I tasted copper. There was something to do now, but I just couldn't remember what it was. I returned to my car, sat there staring at the tarp and the bloody front door and the afterimage of what lay beyond it. I know none of it was my fault, so why did I feel responsible? I just about made up my mind to call Officer Fine, the fine officer, and report a murder when...
Larry?
Yeah?
It's me.
Greta? Are you all right?
Yeah. Why wouldn't I be?
Well, is that a baby crying?
Yes, I'm babysitting.
Okay.
I'm at Pete's house. You know, Carl's brother?
You babysit for him? I say, do you babysit for him?
Yes. Listen, I need you to come up here.
Up where?
Pete's house. It's on Conquest Drive.
Ritzy.
Yeah.
Hey, Greta?
Mm-hmm.
Is everything okay? Are you okay?
It's all good.
Uh-huh. Greta?
Yeah?
If something's wrong, just say, everything's fine, Mr. Snow. You understand? Greta, do you understand?
Everything's fine, Mr. Snow. Come on ahead.
Right. Give me the address. I know what you're thinking. Why not just call Officer Fine, the fine officer? I was wondering that myself as I drove down Conquest Drive, pulled up to a long driveway that went straight uphill to the kind of house that had more in common with a McMansion than with a woodsy retreat. We don't have a lot of hills in Minnesota, but Pete found one, made sure he could live on top of it, looking down on his neighbors. I didn't know Pete well, but something about the place fit the profile. I wondered if shooting people fit his profile too. If I had half an ounce of sense, I would have driven out of Conquest Drive and gone straight to the police. But I didn't have an ounce of sense, it seemed. I had a ton of responsibility for Greta. By the time I got to the top of the Mount Everest driveway, a cold sweat had begun pooling at the base of my neck. As I got to the base of the cedarwood stairs with full-size logs for railings, the front door opened. Greta stood there holding a baby. The kid was maybe a month short of his first birthday and looked at me like he didn't care about me one way or the other. Greta's eyes were broad blue pools that shimmered in the gray light.
You actually came.
Yeah.
Come inside.
Inside the house, hunting trophies stared down at me from the walls. A lot of hunting trophies. There wasn't an elephant, but maybe Pete just hadn't gotten around to that one yet. A mousy woman stood in the middle of the room, quivering and staring at me. Some people you can see their whole lives the first time you lay eyes on them. I could tell this gal had it rough.
Barb, this is Larry. Larry, Barb.
You're babysitting for a woman who's home?
Larry.
I'm just asking. You're Pete's wife?
You shouldn't have come.
Just thinking the same thing. What's happening, Greta?
Pete came by the house asking about you.
Okay.
He kind of insisted I come up here. Said something about babysitting. When I said I was busy, he showed me his gun.
You have to help me.
Barb.
You have to help me. Take Kyle and go. He's gonna kill us. He's gonna kill us all.
Where is he?
He went outside. He was just gonna wait until you came and then kill you too.
Have you called the police?
He took our phones right after he made me call you.
It's really that bad.
He's a wild man, Larry. His eyes aren't right. I think he stepped off.
Okay. Well, he doesn't have my phone, so I'll call
You
the...
have to get out of here. You have to take Kyle.
Who the hell's Kyle? Oh, right.
Pete and his brother have been in an argument about a piece of hunting property for years. I don't know what changed, but this week Pete had finally had enough. I don't think he meant to kill anyone, but now it's all he thinks about. He hasn't slept in 3 days. His brain isn't right. If the cops come, he'll just start shooting. Please, just take Kyle and go. We'll call the police as soon as you're away. I want Kyle far away when the shooting starts.
You sound pretty sure there will be shooting.
He's not right in the head.
Fine, I'll go. Right after I call... Hey, give me that.
I'll dial 911, I promise. Just take my baby away from all this. It's bad enough someone will have to explain it to him someday. Don't make him live through it, too.
That got to me a little bit. The kid had made maybe 2 noises, so honestly, I kind of forgotten he was there. I reached out with both hands, and little Kyle did that half-falling thing babies do when they're switching carriers. He settled into the crook of my arm like I was the uncle that handed out $5 bills. Some kids are mellow like that. I envied him.
He won't shoot if you have Kyle.
Are you sure? Because he never shot anybody before this week.
Mister, please.
What could I do? What do you do when you're staring into the face of a desperate mother whose judgment isn't the best right at the moment? What do you do when things are a hot, confused mess and you're elected to play fixer just because you were the last one through the door? What do? You put the desperate mother's mind at ease by taking her baby and walking out the front door. The woods were quiet. We were getting on towards sunset by then, so there were plenty of shadows to jump at. Kyle seemed happy to be going for the walk. He was quiet. He was warm. I just wanted to get into my car and drive slowly away, hoping I didn't hear the telltale crack of a gun. I didn't hear that. Instead, I heard...
Dada! What the hell do you think you're doing?
Could ask you the same thing, Pete. In fact, I think I will.
None of your business. You a kidnapper?
No. You a murderer? His eyes sparkled a bit at that. I could see what Greta was talking about, Pete going off the rails. He wasn't right in the head. He was a man with a gun who probably killed his own brother over a piece of property. There was a little caveman in him now, a little Cain and Abel. First recorded murder in history, brother killing brother. Looking into his face was like looking into someone used to swinging a stone axe. No axes here, though. Just a .45 aimed at my heart.
Let's go for a walk.
Your missus asked me to take little Kyle here and go get ice cream.
Let's go for a walk.
Look, Pete, there's no reason for the kid
That path there. Get stepping. Move. You follow that path down the hill, you'll come to the river. And when you get to the bank, you just keep going.
I don't understand.
A meddler. That's what you are. You're getting your feet wet today, meddler. You're going to go out 20 feet or so, and when the bottom drops off, you're going to take a little ride in the current.
Look, I don't understand what you want.
You don't need to understand. Just move.
So I did what he said. And the path led where he said it led, and I followed orders right up to my waist in freezing cold snow melt. Kyle, sensing all the tension, started to wail.
Just keep backing up. You'll hit the drop-off soon enough.
Look, take the baby from me at least.
No, that's all backwards. What has to happen is you have to try and get away, and I'll plug you a couple times, and you'll drown or bleed out. Point is, you ain't telling any tales.
And your son?
He's insurance in case you make it out. I'll claim you kidnapped him.
This is insane.
Yeah, but... Yeah. Yeah, it is.
No.
What?
No, I won't do it.
What are you doing?
I'm coming back to shore. You want to kill me? Do it looking me in the eyes.
Get back down there.
No!
Damn you, stop.
I told you I'm getting out of this river.
I'll kill you.
Then you'll have to do it up close. Well? You hear that? That's the cops, Pete. You took the girls' phones, but I still had mine. Greta called them. You really wanted to show up and see you holding a gun on me? Holding a gun on a baby?
I'll say you kidnapped
It's
him.
no good, Pete. Your wife handed the baby to me, and she'll testify that way. You have to give up now. Hell, if you cooperate, they might even keep your trial in this county. Two brothers arguing over hunting land, half the population would have lived through something like that. This is your only chance to have a sympathetic jury. That means a lighter sentence, Pete. Play it right, you might get out while you can still walk. Maybe you'll even get a furlough to see Kyle graduate high school. Pete? He wasn't looking at me now. He was looking down at nothing. His gun hand sagged a bit.
Pete? Pete, this is the police.
At that, Pete looked straight up and straight at the baby, who was still silent, gazing at his father with mild interest. The whole scene didn't bother little Kyle at all. It wasn't serious. Not like he was missing out on the last cookie or being forced to go to bed when there were still cartoons to watch. No, Kyle was chill watching his father take his last breaths as a free man. When Pete reached for him, nice and slow and non-threatening, Kyle did the same half-falling maneuver he'd done with me. Pete didn't even seem to notice when I took the gun from his hand. Well, that's it, as far as the story goes. We're still waiting on the trial for Pete, but there's a rumor he gave a full confession, so that shouldn't take too long. Pete's wife, Barb, got a divorce, the auto parts store, the house, and yes, the hunting land the whole fuss was about. Word is she sold a lot of it and made out for the warm and sunny south of our fair country. Maybe Kyle will grow up playing baseball in the January sunshine, visiting his father once a year up at Stillwater, telling no one of his infant adventure in the river. They say everything happens to us, we remember. I wonder if Kyle will remember me, the stranger who held him above the current while his own father, crazed from guilt and fear, nearly sacrificed the both of us for no good reason at all. But that's a future problem. Right now, I'm sitting on the back porch, looking out at the alley and the 3 empty houses beyond it, waiting on Greta, who's bringing me a beer. Not normal behavior for her, but she says I earned it.
Here you go.
Thanks. So, that's it. That's the story. Good triumphed, evil was vanquished, and my brief career as a private detective came to an end.
Larry,
Yeah?
I wanted to thank you.
It's all right. All's well that ends well, right?
Yeah, see, the thing is, I have a friend with a big problem, and I was thinking you could help.
This town.
This has been Larry Snow, The Baby in the River, the premiere episode of the Larry Snow Mysteries, written and directed by Jeffrey Adams. Your sound effects cue master was Sonara Irwin. Our cast featured Grace Fleslin as Greta, Justin Kapla as Pete, Caleb Silvers as Seth and Officer Fine, Ayla McIntosh as Thin Mint, and starring Jeffrey Adams as Larry Snow.
Well, that is our show for tonight. I want to thank Dalton Johnson for doing sound in the back. Once again, yeah, big round of applause to the crew. And for Ayla, James, Justin, Grace, and of course, Caleb Silvers, Diane, and Sonara Irwin. Thank you so much. For those of you here in the theater, hang around. We'd love to chat, see what you think of the show. For those of you listening online, we now returning to a regularly scheduled program. This is the Icebox Radio Theater live from International Falls, Minnesota.